Hey, y'all. So, if you are a millennial woman who is child free and single, this is the video for you. And that's not to say that if you don't fall into that category, that you can't watch this video because I think you can still get something out of it too, or that there's anything wrong with having children or being partnered. That's not the case at all. We are all in different life stages and all in different places, and that's all fine and dandy. But I'm specifically speaking to that category of women, or this category of women, because I'm going to be sharing a lot about my opinion and perspective, and that is the group that I fall into. I am in my 30s now and single and child free, and that was the case when I lived in the US as well, except obviously I was in my late 20s. So I am able to really compare and contrast what the difference is with how my life was when I lived in the States and how it is living abroad, and why I think that this category of women or this life stage is just the one of the best times to make the move abroad if that's something that you truly desire to do. Because I also recognize that there's some people who live in the US and they're comfortable with that. And so, yeah, if that's the case, I'm not talking about you. Like, you can take vacations and live in the States. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you desire. But for those who do want a different way of life, this might help to shed some light on what it could be like if you do take the leap. So, one of the first comparisons or the differences that I've noticed between living abroad and living in the US at this stage of my life is that there is more opportunity to connect and engage with people on an everyday basis. Now, I know this might vary depending on like where in the US you live, but I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, during this when I stayed in the US, and it was more common for me to not see people on a regular basis than for me to see people. And we know that, the culture in itself is very individualistic. Everyone lives on, or people live on their own. People move out, you live by yourself. You take a car as opposed to, walking, or sometimes, a lot of times, public transportation in certain places is not common or readily available. So just the way that the lifestyle is set up in the US, speaking generally for like most places, not the big cities like New York or I guess New York is really the only place that really has like expansive transportation, I feel like, because LA has crazy bad traffic. Yeah, so I'm not talking like New York, not talking a big city like that, but most people are in their cars. A lot of people, if you're single, you're spending a lot of time with yourself. It can feel very isolating because there aren't a lot of opportunities on an everyday basis to cross paths with people just doing everyday basic things. Like when I lived in Charlotte, I wasn't walking to my gym. I wasn't walking to the grocery store. And even if because I believe there might have been a grocery store within walking distance, but it wasn't like walkable. Like there were huge lanes. So it was difficult, like crossing the street. It just wasn't easy to go and walk, and it definitely wasn't easy to walk back with groceries. So that's a big thing that I've noticed with living abroad, is that it is a lot easier to have human connection on a daily basis, which I think is important when you are unpartnered and, already naturally spending a lot of time alone. And another example I wrote down here is that going out to eat or just going to a cafe and being able to sit around people like that's a thing. I don't go to drive-throughs. I don't know if I've ever gone to a drive-through outside of the US. One time actually does come to mind. When I went to Spain, on the group trip I was on. we we went through a drive-through, but we see I was with groups of people, but we walked through the drive-through. We walked through the drive-through, so like not even in a car. That's interesting. Yeah, that's the only time I can think of where I ever went through a drive-through abroad. So any other time that I'm going out to eat, doing, dining or at a cafe, like I'm sitting down and eating my food around people. And I feel like the culture in America is more fast paced, or like people don't expect you necessarily to always sit down and have a meal. Like you might be ordering takein, or, I would pick up takeout a lot, I feel like, when I lived alone back in the States. So that's a big difference. And then I also am more motivated to leave the house living abroad. I mean, there could be a variety of reasons for that, but I am naturally, or at least I was when I was in the States, a homebody. And I feel like to an extent, I am still a homebody now. I think because what my home is nowadays, it changes so frequently. So depending on how homey my home feels in that moment might determine what level of homebody I am. But I do, like, I am an introvert. I enjoy my own company, so I have no problem being at home. But living abroad, I do feel like I have more motivation to be outdoors, which naturally have me out around more people. So, yes, that is one comparison I noticed. Another one is in relation to food, specifically grocery shopping. I remember struggling when I was in the States. Every time I would go grocery shopping, I would either have to plan to um, basically figure out a way to preserve food, whether that was like meal prepping and like freezing stuff, or timing things right. So I know that there'll be more people coming to visit me, maybe some friends coming over so they could help me eat something. But the likelihood of food going bad when it was just me having to grocery shop for myself was very high, because there's like a push for buying in bulk, and just everything that you would buy at the grocery store in the States, it's so much. It's a lot for just one single person. And I think the likelihood of things going bad, it increases. So that's what one thing I've noticed is that like food waste specifically, in my case, is not as common when I live abroad, because more often than not, the packaging is a lot smaller. So here in Bolivia, when I go to buy chicken breast, like a regular pack of chicken breast is like two pieces of chicken. Like it's literally single size. So, um, and I remember in Vietnam it was the same way too. Now I haven't seen one here, but in Vietnam I know there were stores where you could go buy in bulk. So it was just a matter of specifically going to a wholesale store. But just thinking in the US, like going to a normal grocery store, like you're usually seeing like a 4 pack of chicken breast, 6 pack of chicken breast. Chicken is not so bad because you can freeze it. Things like bread or like milk, stuff where it's like, I would love this like half size. I can have it and not have to overconsume or like take extra steps to preserve the food, is something that I noticed abroad. Another comparison is in regards to dating. So I can't guarantee that outside of the US, your luck with dating will increase. But I will say that dating outside of the US has been more enjoyable for me than it was when I was dating in the US. And I think a big part of that is because there's less of a focus on one gender roles. I think the expectations for what one gender does versus another, it has a lot to do with culture. And so if you are entertaining someone of a different culture, y'all got other things to think about anyway before it gets down to like, oh, this person does this and this person does that. Like the focus is just shifted on other things, and it's more so about getting to know the person than trying to follow this checklist of rules that society has told you each person needs to play depending on what their gender is. So that's been one part of it. And then another is just the dates themselves. Outside of the US, it's not as expensive to go outside. So that takes off a lot of pressure when it comes to the type of activities that you might do or the places that you might meet up for a date. And when you take the pressure of how costly something is away, it doesn't make things as like so serious. Like you can do fun things and enjoy the date and it not be so high stakes. If you go out and do something really fun, for example, like going, I don't know, to go sightsee the city. Like I've on a date, I've gone with someone to what's the like a viewpoint. So like you go up a mountain to like oversee like the whole city. So you just go up, people are up there just chilling, talking, which is what we did. Go up there just talking, looking at like how beautiful the city is from this like scenic point of view. You might have like, I don't know, coffee or whatever your beverage of choice is while you're up there. And you just talk and get to know the person. You're not really thinking about how much that costs. Like it really is more of a focus on getting to know the person that you're doing this interesting activity with. And that's what the biggest thing I've noticed is that one, the dates are a lot more interesting. And obviously that has to do with me like being somewhere different, somewhere new. But I do think there are a lot more just free or like really low cost activities to do, whether it's going to a museum, whether it's hanging out at a really nice park, whether it's just going for a stroll through a walkable part of the city. Like these are things that are not commonly mentioned as date options in the States. Not to say that they aren't options to do in the States, but when it comes to dating, they don't come up as often. And dating outside the US, I find that these are like the first go-to like date options. Getting coffee, going for like walks and things like that. And even going to get coffee, right? Like coffee in the US could be like $5 to $7 a person versus going to get coffee. You might pay that much for two coffees. And that might even be splurging a little because you get a little flavoring. I don't know, but you get my point. They're a lot more low cost, and so it's not as high stakes or high stressful as like going on a first date or getting to know someone in the U.S. might be. I also think or I've noticed it with myself, just a lot less pressure from friends and family when it comes to me having children. It's still some pressure when it comes to like, when are you gonna find a man? That whole, that's a whole thing. I don't know if that'll ever go away. As if, I could just go to the store and be like, one husband, please. So yeah, there's always a little bit of pressure in that category. But I think when it comes to children, especially because there is no man in the picture right now, they can't really pressure me to do something like that. And I think with me living abroad, because it's so different from what I think anyone in my family would have ever guessed I would be doing at this stage of my life, it's hard for them to hold me to a standard when I'm doing, like, my lifestyle is just completely left field from what they would have thought I would be doing by this stage of my life. And so because of that, you can't pressure someone to do something when they're doing something like not even in alignment with what you're trying to pressure them to do. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I think me living abroad at this age, at this stage, has been sort of a pattern interrupt. And it has lessened that pressure that I know we as millennial women who are child free and single often get. So that's been nice. And that's not to say that I don't want children or don't want a family eventually. It's just, life is what it is. And I'm enjoying the life that I have now and not succumbing to the pressures of living the life that someone else, whoever came up with these rules, thinks I should be living it. Like we all have our time, or we all have our timeline of, what our life is supposed to be. And so it's a lot more enjoyable when that pressure is released and you can just enjoy where you are. And then to piggyback off of that, I noticed another comparison is that I truly feel like I have the freedom to design my life in the way that I want it to be, as opposed to trying to align with the societal pressures of the States, or the societal pressures that we have in the States. And with this in particular, I was referring to seeing friends around me accomplishing certain life milestones that didn't align with my own timeline. And that's not to say that, there was anything wrong with the timeline that they're on or that I'm not happy for them, because absolutely. But I think when it's right in your face, or right in your face sounds so negative, but the having such close proximity to other people achieving milestones around you, and it can start to feel isolating if that's not happening for you. So I think seeing those things or hearing about them while being abroad, it hits differently, because I am still able to be happy for them and like, you know, be there for them. Like if it involves me traveling to where they are to help them to celebrate these milestones, that's great. But I don't feel like I'm living in a world where this is constantly happening around me and it's like I'm again pressured or feeling like left out or left behind. I'm able to live my life in the lane that I'm in and still see other people living their life in the lane that they're in and have appreciation for both of those, right? Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Y'all let me know in the comments if that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll clarify. And then the last thing that I noted, the difference between my life in the States and living abroad, is one that I think a lot of us would have already guessed, but just the difference in the financial burdens living in certain countries abroad versus living in the US. And I say certain countries because you definitely can move abroad and end up in a country that has a higher cost of living than the States. But you have the freedom, you have the option to control or have a say over where you're living and ultimately have a say of what your cost of living is. And this goes beyond just what the cost of living is in that new country. It also goes for like taxes in the US. It's a known thing that single people are taxed more in the United States. So by moving abroad, you're able to utilize certain tax advantages that can offset how much taxes you would be spending that if you were back in the States. And so it's more of a benefit to live outside of the US if you're single and that's something you want to do. And those are honestly all the comparisons that I was thinking through and really just reasoning for why I think being a millennial woman and being child free and single makes for one of the best times to live abroad if that's truly what you want to do. And if that is the route that you're looking to take, I would love for you to grab my Beyond the 9 to 5 guide. It's down in the description box below. It's a free guide that you can use not only to get some clarity on where you want to go when it comes to moving abroad, but also find ways that you can utilize the skills that you currently have and map those to income streams that you can use to make money from anywhere. So be sure to check that out. And I want to hear from you all. Are you looking to make the move abroad? If so, where? And what did you think about these comparisons? Are they enticing to you to want to make the move if you hadn't been thinking about it before? And yeah, if you're a millennial woman who's child free and single, living in the US, but wanting to move abroad, I'm really curious to know what is holding you back from making that move. Let me know down in the comments. Let's keep the discussion going. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys for all the support and just being with me in all these videos each and every day. And yeah, with that, I'll see you guys mañana. Ciao.